Welcome to the Wealthy Woman's Podcast, a podcast for high-achieving women who are great at making money but struggle to build wealth. You'll learn how to take control of your money, increase your net worth, and make more. Ladies, it's time to create a life with more money and more freedom. Let's dive in. Well, hello, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. This is episode number 28. I'm so excited about this topic because many of my clients sometimes come to me and they're stressed out about their debt. They wake up in the middle of the night worrying about it, and I really want you all to know that you don't have to stress out about your debt. And this is coming from someone like me who was in over $200,000 worth of debt. And I stressed about my debt for a little bit, but then I was able to really calm myself down, and I'm going to show you how I did it. I'm going to show you how you can do it in your life as well. So before I get started, I want to talk to you all about my masterclass that is coming up on Saturday, this Saturday, September 30th at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I want to remind you to register. So if you're not registered yet, go ahead to the show notes. There's a link there, or you can just go to www.jermainefoley.com/SOS. And that SOS stands for Stop Overspending. Okay, here's what we're going to cover in that class. I'm going to talk to you. I'm going to show you why you overspend and why it's so hard to stop. I know so many of you want to stop overspending. You're like, I just can't control myself. I have no discipline. It has nothing to do with that. I'm going to show you why that actually is the case for you, why you just can't figure out how to stop. There's some psychology to that, and I'm going to break that down for you during the class. I'm also going to dream with you a little bit. I want you to dream as well for yourself around how your life can be so different if you just took control of your money and you no longer overspent. We are talking about going from feeling stressed and overwhelmed to feeling free and in control and peaceful when it comes to your finances. I really want you all to get to that place. And part of that is to no longer overspend all that amazing money that you make for yourself. And then finally, we're going to really tackle the big question, how to permanently stop overspending. But here's the caveat. We want to stop overspending without completely giving up our lifestyle. I know like so many of you have ignored your money for so long because you think that in order to take control of your money, you have to live on a strict budget and you have to give up all the things you love, and you just can't fathom that, and it just makes you want to cringe. It probably does make you cringe, and you're just like, you know what? I don't want to live like that, so you do nothing. But I want to tell you that you can do both. You can build wealth and enjoy life at the same time. So just because we're going to talk about how to stop overspending doesn't mean that we're going to stop enjoying our lives. We're going to be able to do that as well. So join me for the class. I have some surprises up my sleeves, but it's only for those who join me live. If you do not join me live, you will not be able to take advantage of the surprises that I am going to share with the live participants, okay? So go to www.jermainefoley.com/SOS, or just simply go to the show notes and sign up there. And again, it's Jermaine with a G. Okay, so let's go ahead and get into the episode. Okay, so as I stated, we are talking about debt stress, right? Sometimes our debt can just feel so heavy. We can feel burdened by it, and it causes us to feel anxiety. It causes us to feel stress. And I want you to know that it's optional. That is optional. You do not have to feel stressed out or overwhelmed about the amount of debt you have. I don't care how much it is. I don't care if it's $5,000, $500, or $500,000. You do not have to feel stressed out about it. Okay, and I'm going to give you some tools today that will help you to really start to calm yourself down when it comes to your debt. Okay, so what we're going to look at today, first, we're just going to understand why you may be feeling anxious or stressed or overwhelmed about your debt. and why it's so important to pay attention to those feelings. We don't want you to ignore them, and I'm going to tell you why in a little bit. And then we're also going to learn, I'm going to give you some strategies for how you can calm yourself down when it comes to your debt. So if you're feeling worried, you're feeling anxious, you're feeling a little overwhelmed, and it's keeping you up at night, and you are just ready to have some relief from that, I'm going to show you how to do it in a healthy way. And it doesn't include borrowing from your 401k to pay it off or borrowing from your IRA to pay it off. Like, you don't need to do any of that to feel better. Okay. So let's talk about why it's important to pay attention to what you're feeling. So I understand that it is very uncomfortable to feel uncomfortable emotions like overwhelm, anxiety, stress, and worry. Like, I understand that those emotions can feel very uncomfortable. And I'm being very careful to call them uncomfortable emotions because the truth is these emotions can be very useful for you in certain situations, okay? And I know that sometimes we are tempted to mask it. That is why we have things called emotional eating, emotional spending, over drinking, right? Because our bodies, our primitive brain, and remember, I always mention the primitive brain because a lot of what we deal with financially is psychology, right? And our primitive brain, if you want to learn more about the primitive brain and how it functions and things like that, go over to episode 7, and I talk a lot more about that. But our primitive brain is very interesting because it doesn't want us to feel pain. So it operates on a system called the motivational triad, and it doesn't want you to feel pain, right? And emotional pain is included in that. And so sometimes in order to fix that emotional pain that you're feeling, you want to do things that will prevent you from feeling that emotion. In the life coaching world, we call that buffering. Buffering means to do something that will prevent you from feeling an emotion. So overspend so that you don't feel anxiety. Overdrink so that you don't feel overwhelmed. Overspend or overeat so that you don't feel worried, right? So it's something that you do that kind of puts a buffer in between the feeling that you're feeling and you. So it's just like, okay, let's overspend. Let's go spend something. Let's go to Target. Let's see what Amazon has because I'm feeling anxious right now and I don't want to feel anxious. So let me do something that will distract me from this anxiety. So that is what buffering is. And that is what we do a lot of times when we are feeling anxious about our debt or about anything else. And here's the problem with that. It doesn't fix the problem. First of all, it only feels good temporarily, and it causes you to experience a net negative consequence. So, for example, if you are overspending because you're anxious about your debt, then of course you feel better only temporarily. And then not only that, you either are going deeper into debt because you're overspending, which is causing even more problems, or you're using money that could be going to pay off your debt to spend. So it's like you're creating a vicious cycle. So whenever we try to buffer, whenever we try to avoid our negative emotions, it usually backfires and it gives us even more consequences to deal with. And so remember how I just said that the primitive brain is very interesting and it operates off of the motivational triad. So the motivational triad is all about keeping you safe. And the way it keeps you safe by helping you to avoid pain, by helping you to seek pleasure, and by helping you to conserve energy. So it thinks that, those are the 3 things you can do to stay safe. But overall, the job of your primitive brain is to keep you safe. Okay. So if you are feeling anxiety, if you are feeling overwhelmed or worried, sometimes that is just your internal warning system alerting you to, hey, there may be danger around the corner. Hey, maybe you're going a little too far into debt. Hey, maybe we need to slow this down a little bit because your primitive brain is perceiving that your level of debt is not safe. It is going to cause you to experience a hardship. It is going to cause you to experience negative consequences down the line that are going to be very painful. So it's like you can think of the anxiety as a warning system. It's your body, it's your primitive brain saying, hey, something's not right here. We may want to look at this. We may want to slow down. We may need to pay attention, and we may need to stop doing what we're doing. So I know I talk about the primitive brain a lot, and sometimes when I talk about it in a way that it's driving us to do things that are not good for us. But remember, the primary job of the primitive brain is to keep you safe. So for instance, if you are in the house at night and you hear a noise, your primitive brain is going to put you on alert. And that is exactly what it's doing if it perceives that maybe you have a little bit too much debt. Maybe you're using those credit cards a little too much. Maybe you've overspent a little too much, and now there's possible danger. Like, are we going to be able to keep the house? Are we going to be able to keep food on the table? Are you going to be able to pay it? So those are the questions that are kind of running through your brain. And you may not really consciously know those questions are running through your brain, but what you do know is that you're feeling anxious and you're feeling worried and you're feeling on edge. And so it's important to pay attention to when you're feeling that way. Sometimes you're feeling that way and there's no reason to worry. Like, for instance, if you're in a house at night and you hear a noise and then you go out into the living room and you notice that the remote control dropped. You're like, oh, that wasn't a problem. But your primitive brain didn't know that. It just knew that, hey, I hear a noise. Let me alert her. So you may have gone into debt and it's not a problem at all. And it's just like, yeah, I'm fine. Like, I have a plan to pay it off. Like, it's okay. But sometimes that noise is something that needs to be listened to. Sometimes that anxiety that you're feeling because of your debt is something that you do need to pay attention to. Okay. So you will never, ever know though, unless you allow yourself to pay attention to it and not buffer it away and not try to mask it and not try to get rid of it by doing things like drinking, overeating, and overspending. Okay. When you do those things, then you don't even allow yourself to pay attention to that warning system. And so you can't rely on it then because you're masking it. You're pushing it down. You're not paying attention to it. And I want to offer that if you're feeling anxiety, if you're feeling a little overwhelmed, if you're feeling a little worried about your debt, to pay attention to that feeling and don't try to ignore it and don't try to mask it. Again, it may not be an issue at all, but it may be. Your brain may be trying to keep you safe. Well, that is what it's doing. Your brain is definitely trying to keep you safe. Maybe the anxiety is warranted and it's just trying to get you back on the right path. So the bottom line is you really won't know if the anxiety is warranted or not if you don't check in and pay attention to yourself. So pay attention to that feeling. Don't ignore it and allow yourself to check in to see what's going on. So let me give you an example. When I was deep in debt, I was very anxious and very stressed out about it. And I talk about that in episode number 2, when I was like in church crying and worried about how in the world I was going to get myself out of that and how I was just so stressed out about it. That was my primitive brain warning me that, hey, Jermaine, you need to do something. You need to do something different. If you want to have the life you desire, if you want to live the life that you dream of, you need to course correct. And so I am so glad that I actually listened to that anxiety and I didn't mask it and I didn't try to ignore it or push it away. Because by me listening to it, I was able to really check in with myself and know that I was on the wrong track and I needed to do something different, right? And if I didn't listen, I would have just kept going down that road and I would have been in a place definitely different from where I am now. And so listening to that anxiety, even though it's so uncomfortable, even though it doesn't feel good all the time, really can serve you well. And remember, it's just your brain trying to keep you safe, trying to get you to pay attention and trying to get you to course correct. Okay, so now that I hope I've sold you on paying attention to that anxiety and not ignoring it and not trying to get rid of it and not trying to buffer it away. I hope I sold you on that. And if I did, now here is how you can actually calm yourself down when it comes to your debt. So you may be thinking, Jermaine, like the only way that I'm going to be able to stop freaking out about all of this is if I get out of debt. So I need to get out of debt super fast. And you may be trying to brainstorm ways to do it. Maybe I'll get a debt consolidation loan. Maybe I'll take it out my 401k or borrow from my IRA and I'll just pay the penalties. Like, I want you to know, if you really want to calm yourself down, then you don't need to borrow from your 401k or take money from your IRA or do a debt consolidation loan. Like, this can be an inside job. You don't have to change anything about your circumstances to start feeling better today. And that is a powerful thing I want you to know. Like, your circumstances, we think it's our circumstances that are causing us to feel negative emotion, but it really isn't. It's the way we're thinking about our circumstances that is causing us to feel these emotions that we're feeling. Okay? So I want you to know you don't need to go out and try to change the circumstance in order to feel better. And the truth is, sometimes when we do that, when we all go out and try to do it in a way that's quick and easy, we don't change and we end up finding ourselves right back where we were. I am an example of that. I talk about it in episode 2, where I thought bankruptcy was going to fix everything. And it did not, because I was still the same person making the same decisions and doing the same things and creating the same results. So if you go out and just, borrow from your IRA or try to do a debt consolidation loan, you will end up with probably double the amount of debt because you're going to get yourself right back into it because you haven't become the person that knows how to take control of her money and build wealth without overusing debt. Like, you're still that same person. So it's just a quick fix. And so it's not going to change who you are. Changing who you are and how you behave with money is really what we're going for here. That is what I work with my clients on. That is why my Stop Overspending Masterclass is going to be so powerful. And that is why working with me in my programs is so powerful, because we don't just treat the symptoms. The debt is a symptom of something else that's going on inside of you. So what we do in coaching is we work on the cause of the debt, not the debt itself. Of course, the debt eventually will go away. But what we really need to work on is, why do you have the debt in the first place if that's not what you desire, if that's not what you want? So that is why, trying to do a quick fix typically doesn't work. And again, episode number 2, I talk about it when I talk about my not so pretty money story, because that's what I thought. I thought if I just filed for bankruptcy, then I was going to fix everything. And I did not. That was not the case for me. So I warn you against trying to do something like, I'm just going to borrow from this and I'm just going to pay it off this way. Because 9 times out of 10, you're going to find yourself in the same situation, back in debt, and now you don't have your 401k, or now you don't have the money that was in your IRA. You're missing out on all the compounding interest you could have had from that. So this is why I don't recommend trying to come up with a quick fix, okay? So that is not how I'm going to say you can calm yourself down. The good news is you can do this with literally a pen and paper, okay? So here's what I do when I'm feeling anxious about anything. It can be about money, it can be about life in general, it can be about anything at all. I grab a pen and paper and I literally write at the top of the paper, I am feeling anxious. Why? And I allow myself to write unedited for as long as I need to. And I write and I write and I write, and I do not correct myself. I do not erase. I do not cross things out. I just let it all flow out of me, because sometimes that is exactly what we need to start to feel better, is just to release all of the stuff that's going on inside of our brains, and we need to dump it out on paper. And it's such a therapeutic way to just let all of it out. Now, once you do that, you will notice, once you start to read it, that there are going to be a lot of terrifying thoughts on that paper, a lot of thoughts that do not serve you, and a lot of thoughts that are making you feel anxious, that are making you worry, that are making you feel overwhelmed, okay? That is why you're feeling the emotions that you're feeling. It's not because of the debt. It's because of what you're thinking about the debt. The fact that you may be thinking that I'll never get out of this, or I don't make enough, or this is going to take forever, or how I'm going to get out of this, or this was so stupid, I shouldn't have done this, how did I get here? All of those thoughts are what's causing you to feel the stress, anxiety, or overwhelm, okay? And you get to decide that, oh my gosh, I no longer want to tell myself I'm not going to be able to get out of this. I no longer want to tell myself that this was a mistake, that I shouldn't have done this, right? I no longer want to tell myself that there's no way out, because when I think those thoughts, it makes me feel anxious. So instead of thinking those thoughts, now you can become aware of them. Now you know they're there. You can literally take another sheet of paper and tell yourself, hey, I've got my own back here. I'm not going to keep going into debt like this. I'm going to do something different. I see that this is not good for us. I see that something needs to change, and I'm going to change. Like sometimes you just got to talk to yourself like that. You can write it and you can literally talk to yourself. It's okay to talk to yourself. Self-talk is very, very good for you. You can start to ensure yourself that you have your own back, that you will take care of yourself and your family, that you will begin moving in a different direction. You can even come up with a plan like, okay, I'm going to pull my credit report. I'm going to write all my debts down. I'm going to use the debt snowball. And actually, next time I get paid, I'm going to pay a credit card off. I'm not going to use them anymore. Maybe I'm going to get rid of them if it's a problem. You can literally tell yourself what you're going to do to start course correcting. You can just remind yourself, hey, I got your back. Like, we're going to be okay. Yes, I got us into this situation, but I know how to get out. Okay. You can literally talk to yourself. You can write out a plan. You can right then and there start pulling your credit report and saying, okay, I see what I need to do. I know what the debts are. And sometimes you'll do this work. You'll like pull your credit report and list them all out. And you'll be like, oh my God, it's not even as bad as I thought. Sometimes our brain is like making it way bigger than what it really is. And you can say, oh, you know what? I can actually pay this off next month because I mean, gosh, I can knock these two off tomorrow. Like, you just never know what you will come up with, what your intelligent self, what your prefrontal cortex will come up with when you look at it and when you start to pay attention to it and when you start to make a plan about it. And then your brain, your primitive brain will start to calm down. It's like, oh, okay, you got a plan. Oh, it's not as bad. Okay, you're going to pay it off next week. Okay, we're going to get out of this. You're safe. We're not going to lose the house. We're going to be able to put food on the table. And the brain, it's like literally your brain is freaking out because it thinks that it's unsafe and that you're going to be out in the streets. But when you're like, no, I got this. I got a plan. I know how much we got to pay off and I'm going to pay it off. And I'm not going to keep going into debt. And sometimes you need to go a little bit further. And one of the things I love to do when I'm feeling anxious and it's like, okay, it's starting to dissipate, it's starting to dissolve. Because, you know, sometimes when you're anxious, there's like this buzzing feeling inside of you and you just want to kind of calm it down. So one of the things that I do is I like place my hand on my chest and I kind of let it lay there, not too heavy, but I kind of give it a little bit of pressure. So it's like I feel the pressure a little bit. And I just take a few deep breaths and I assure myself like, I'm okay. Like, I'm safe. I have my own back. I'm going to get us through this. I'm changing my ways. We are not going to stay here. And that is sometimes all you need to do to just start to feel better about where you are and then to actually follow through on the promises that you make to yourself. If you say you're going to stop using the credit cards and you're going to stop going into debt, then follow through on that promise to yourself. If you tell yourself you're actually going to pull your credit report and really see where you are, do it. Don't wait. You can get a free one every single year. So don't wait on that. And you can list them out. You can get real clear on where you stand and then devise a plan of how you're going to get rid of it. And it doesn't need to be an emergency. It doesn't need to be super fast. But if you can just reassure yourself that you're safe, that you're paying attention, and that you've got your own back, then you should start to feel lighter. The anxiety should start to lift someone. You may need to do this exercise often, right? You may need to remind yourself often that you got your own back, that the house is safe, that there's going to be food on the table, right? and that you've got a plan of how you're going to get rid of it. This is a practice that I use all the time, and I'm offering it to you. And here's the thing I want you to know, and this is so empowering. No matter where you are right now, you can always course correct. Always. You can always course correct. So never ever believe that your situation is not fixable. It is. It is. And when you can believe that, then you can start taking those action steps that I talked about earlier of figuring out a way out. So I hope this episode was helpful for you, especially if you have debt and especially if you're feeling overwhelmed by your debt or feeling anxious about your debt. This is a practice that can really help calm you down. And don't forget to register for my Stop Overspending Masterclass. It is happening this coming Saturday, September 30th at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can register using the link in the show notes or simply go to jermainefoley.com/SOS. See you next time. Bye-bye. Hey, before you go, if you're ready to create a life with more money and more freedom, then you're invited to join the Wealthy Woman's Academy, my signature coaching program where you'll learn how to take control of your money and build wealth without sacrificing your lifestyle. To get started, head on over to jermainefoley.com/WWA. That's Jermaine with a G. See you over there. Bye-bye.